Hello and welcome back to this edition of Daily Actives brought to you by Bootleg Macro. I am Dustin. This is the show where we look at the most active stocks on Yahoo Finance every single day. We're going to be looking at Opendoor. Opendoor continues to be one of the most popular stocks on the market. Today, it looks like we had over 201 million shares traded. That's ridiculous, especially when you consider the fact that the price didn't go anywhere. I mean, I guess it was down 8.61%, so that probably hurt. But in the grand scheme of things, since Opendoor broke high to its 52-week high, it looks like over the past on 9/11, essentially we haven't seen the price go anywhere. If we look at the candlesticks, yes, we've had bullishness. That's what that green line means. But the price really hasn't gone anywhere since the very beginning or essentially early part of September. The thing that's really supporting this, at least I'd consider to be positive, is the fact that you don't see major volume. Obviously, the average volume here is 223 million. We've only traded 202 million today. If I was going to look for anything that might be scary, might be a little negative, would be the move we see here. We were positive, which means that above the black line when it's mostly green, or at least you see more green above the black line as opposed to red below the black line, that means it's bullish. So this thing has essentially been bullish consistently since June, middle of July at least. And now for the first time in a long time, we are below the 50% line. Even on the 15-day, we are well below. It looks like we fought that for a little bit. If there's anything that's even slightly positive, it's the fact that we see that the correlation or the volatility is starting to break down. The correlation to price and volatility is also negative. So two negatives do make a positive in this instance. If we look at the actual data table, the thing that's nice is that you see it's got a green background with black lettering. That means it's in the normal part of its range. The only concerning part is so is that with the volume. You'd like to see this move higher. It is bullish, so that's at least that's a good sign. It's below its trade level. It's slightly a bad sign. It does have a higher low, kind of a good sign. It is now down in the 1 day and the 15-day. Not a big deal. I think the hardest part for what is going on in open is the fact that it's up 1,700 or 7,000 plus percent over the past 3 months. You're going to need to see that come down to probably 100. This could easily go from 44 down to 10 or 15 very easily. So I do think that there's probably a little bit more down move coming for open, but right now it just essentially needs time. I don't think there's much you can really do. I mean, you could buy it, but I'm not sure there's much else you could do. Bull, this looks terrible. Just going to say that. The reason why it looks terrible to me is because even though this thing has massive volume, 162 million shares traded today, it essentially has done nothing. If we look at the trade range, you can see that it's actually a relatively tight range. If we look at the chart, it's essentially gone nowhere. We closed at 1266, just like we essentially did in July 14th. And we saw massive volume. That is super negative. Now, if we're looking at the daily sentiment, it is positive. Yeah, we're at 53%. We made it 56% even on the 3 week. The volatility just really isn't doing much. I assume I'm going to change this a little bit so we can look at some more. But I assume that this volatility that I'm seeing right here is going to be very similar to the volatility we saw between August and September. Just a small little guy that is going to probably be in between another bigger humps. Now, I don't know what that means. All I can tell you is that based on the price that I'm seeing, it's not really doing anything. Now, if we look at the price, it's concerning that we are moderately low and we've seen volume that is extremely high. We are below the trade level significantly. We are close to the bottom of the range. We're closer to the bottom of the range than we are to the top of the range. The prices to fall in the future price path, we are negative on the 1 day, 5 day, 1 month, and 6 month. So I'm going to be cautious when it comes to bull. If I even want, I'm not buying that. Let's go ahead and look at Riggedy Computing. Riggedy, I think it might be Riggedy. I like this move. Again, you've got very tight range. You've got a nice breakout. The close was above the top of the range. It consolidated a little bit here. It has broken out again. The top of the range continues to climb. When we look at the chart, we're seeing things that even though you see that it is essentially starting to break out. This isn't massive volatility. This is essentially just like a very nice steady bull run, kind of the move that you want to see out of like what people consider to be a base. I love that we got a lot of volume here. We had 165 million shares traded just today, 155 million, excuse me. That's fantastic. I do think that we are looking at something which is relatively positive in terms of what's happening here in Riggedy Computing. When you look at the bullishness, it's up at 70%. That's kind of bearish. I mean, not because that's actually bearish, but because it's most likely it's a mean reverting indicator. You can see it always wants to come to the black line. So at 70%, that's usually the highest you'd go. Even on the 15-day, we can see it's starting to fall a little bit. The volatility, just like I mentioned, this is why the range is so big, is just screaming higher. The correlation is also positive. That's why you're getting gap ups. We look at the price as for the close. This thing has essentially been moderately high for a very long time. Even in the volume, it is bullish. It's well above its trade level. You got higher highs. You're really positive, but the problem is again, you're up 106% in 1 month, 238% or 239% over 3 months. You're going to need to see this thing consolidate at least a little bit. Not saying it's going to happen. Not saying there could be a massive news, but something's going to happen. Let's go ahead and look at AMD. AMD. If you watched my video from yesterday, which I encourage you to go subscribe on Bootleg Macro or follow me on Twitter, I would say that this is going to have some sort of mean reversion. But the thing that is most important is that when you look at this chart, when we look at the type of move that we've seen inside of AMD, and I'm going to look at a 1 year chart because I want to call this out. When you look at the move that you saw when you were bearish, Look at those candles. Look at how small that range is. When you hit this bottom in April after Liberation Day and then you broke into a bullish move, look at those candles. Look at how small the range is. So what I want to call it is that it doesn't matter if it's bearish or bullish in AMD. This range is very tight generally. But that's what brings me to right now. Ba-boom. These ranges are completely different. If you, I'm telling you, the way that I see this, there's a completely different market structure and style of trading in which AMD is about to float. If they did a reverse stock split right now and went down to $23, they would go back up to $100 very quickly. I see this thing, which is currently a $382 billion share company or market cap, easily could be $1 trillion for no other reason than memes. I am not saying there's any fundamental reason. I'm not saying I believe in the valuation. I'm not saying that they have any sales. I don't even look at that stuff. I am saying that when I look at the data and the way that this is operating and the way that the price is behaving, this is fundamentally different from the way that it's been trading all along. The volume is supporting it. You are seeing now for the first time this thing is going to start breaking up above 55% of this daily sentiment. It is at 55% on the 15-day. You see the volatility completely reset and is breaking out. When we look at the data table, the prices are ridiculous. They're extremely high, right? They've been extremely high for 3 days in a row. We had extreme high volume. We're starting to see just moderately high. It is very bullish. It is well above the top of the trade level. We've got sell tops, which are going to be screaming higher, trying to catch up to the close, as well as you can see that we've got higher highs. We are now at 47% on the 1 month and 51% on the 3 month. Those aren't even crazy numbers. Those aren't even crazy numbers. I know that it seems nuts, but the way that I'm seeing the way that AMD is moving, things have dramatically changed, and I want to be long whenever I get a nice little pullback. Let's go ahead and look at Plug. Plug, interesting stock. Generally, if you've traded long enough, Plug will always show up on one of your screeners at some point because it's notorious. Whenever small caps are running, Plug will end up running. We look at the move. It's obviously a very nice breakout. We've had very tight range. Essentially, we saw a complete shift in the style and momentum of the stock. Hit the top of the range, consolidate a little bit. Hit the top of the range, pulling back, probably can consolidate a little bit. I like the fact that we've essentially seen the big moves have been with high volume. When you are getting kind of like pullbacks, the volume recedes. Very convincing. We look at the daily sentiment, very, very positive. We are at 60%. We just broke up above. It looks like on the 15th of September. We are currently rolling over. It looks like on the 15-day, we're only at 54%. You can see that's kind of starting to come down, mean reverting. The volume, our volatility has completely broken out. The correlation has been very positive. This is why you're getting gap ups, or at least in the second derivative, this is explaining the gaps that we're seeing in the close. The only concerning thing, again, with most of the things that we've been looking at is it's moderately high or significantly high in the price just recently. The volume is starting to come down, which is nice because when the price is falling, you don't want it to be on massive volume. You want to see big up moves with massive volume, which is what we're seeing in Plug. Very convincing. Obviously, on the 5-day, up crazy, nearly 25%, 15-day, 82%. Like these are the type of moves that just need a little bit of time to consolidate. I mean, yes, Plug is a $2 stock, 365 for all the days in the year. But it is one of those things that it can move. This thing could be $7, it could be 70 cents. I'm not sure. Let's go ahead and look at Snap. Snap, I know, is going to be fascinating because first off, this thing was up only 3% today. But regardless, let's go ahead and look. I think it got such a weird hourglass shape with how tight it is, and then it breaks out. The close continues to move. I suspect that it's going to rise or ride along the top of the range at least a little bit. I'd like to see the top of the range continue to break out. The moves that we're seeing in the candles, just not convincing. I do like that we essentially saw it come off of this bottom, have a little bit of a move, and then we're kind of, it looks like turning over in shares. It is bullish on the daily sentiment, has been since it looks like the 10th of September. We are still at 54% and well above. On the 15-day, we are holding as well. We've actually hit nearly there at 50.9 on the 26th, still stayed above bullish, 52%. The volatility, I'm not sure if it's going to fall over, if it's going to continue to break out. The problem with something like Snap is just trendless. Now you can get great trading opportunities, and in my opinion, if you're looking for one, we're getting there because the trade level's at 809. The close is in the normal range. We've got a higher low, so it's pushing higher. The top of the range, the problem is only at $9, so there just isn't much upside. If we look at the 1 day through the 15-day, very positive. The 3 month is starting to. It's still negative, so I wouldn't trade it. I wouldn't pay attention to Snap at all. Even though it's got a ton of volume, I can see why it's not really doing anything because the 3 month rolling return. That's not because of it, but that's just how I can tell I don't want to trade it. Now we look at Denison Mines. I made fun of looking at mines yesterday, but I honestly like it when they got a trend like this. This thing is incredible. I'd like to see the top of the range. It looks like it's actually starting to inflect a little bit. It was at 305, now it's at 307, so it's starting to inflect a little bit. You can see it's just very tight, nice, low volatility bull market. Love to see it. You see we got a nice little volume. It looks on the 6th and the 7th, even on the 8th. You can see here we are very, very bullish. We're at 63% bullish on the daily indicator. On the 15-day, we're at 66% bullish. Denison looks fantastic. What I love is that we've got the falling volatility here. The only negative is that we've got a positive correlation with the falling volatility, which means that the price should be kind of falling too. Hence why, if we look at what it did today, it was up 35 basis points. It probably started out much higher. I'll go ahead and look at just here. Yeah, it was actually from open to close because it opened at 288 and it closed at 286. So, but if we look at where we are from the close yesterday, we're up a penny. So we're consistent. The volume wasn't there. I would like to see the price essentially get in the normal range, give it a little bit of time. The range is just so small that it's in the normal range at 281, but at 285, it's moderately high. Like that's just the low volatility of a Denison mine, or not a Denison mine, just a mine in general. Let's go ahead and look at NVIDIA. I just want to see what NVIDIA is because NVIDIA, if you watch my previous videos, I'm saying that this thing is essentially Return to the King. And the way that it's looking right now, it looks like it's back to reclaiming the throne as the top stock of the year. It was essentially bearish. It was essentially bullish. It was very much bearish. And now it is very much bullish again. What I love is that we essentially saw a turnover of all of the shares here between August and September and the beginning of October. It's been about 2.5 months or 2 months. I like a 6-week time frame if I'm thinking about a trend changing from like a pullback. So this is like perfect for me. Like 6 to 8 weeks, I think is like a perfect amount of turnover for a stock before it wants to start going higher again. We can see if we're looking at the daily sentiment indicator, we broke up above the bullishness on the second. Even on the eighth here, we can definitely see that we're well above it. And what's nice is we're coming from below it relatively recently. You can see the volatility. There's nothing much doing, but I would suspect that if we're going to get any move that's going to be substantial, especially into that 200 level, we're going to have to see some volatility break out again. I would expect some news. If you watched my video yesterday, I was definitely saying I want to see the close into the low 190s just because it needs to confirm the type of move that I would suspect if it's going to be bullish. And we just got 2 days of bullishness. For me, I want 2 days of anything, and that's when I confirm it. The first day is like, okay, interesting. The second day is like, okay, it's real, let's buy. I have been buying when I was down in the normal zone. I definitely bought yesterday because I think that I believe in the outcome that this is going to resolve higher, probably to like 225, 250, just off of pure momentum in the bull market. So I like to see that we've got a higher high. I like to see that we got a sell top, which is moving higher. I like to see that we are positive from the 1 day all the way to the 1 year. I'm very, very convinced that NVIDIA is going to continue to run. I'm going to go ahead and look. I want to look. There is Bitfarms. Let's go ahead and look at Bitfarms real quick. I got to look at it just because this thing was up, what was it, 15% today? 15.27% today. Let's go ahead and look at Bift. So Bitfarm or whatever this is. Yeah, Bitfarm. This thing was up. This thing was up 15.2% today. Now, if we look at it, it's above the top of the range, as you'd expect. I do love, just in general, I think I called this out in the open, which is at the part of it is at the very beginning of this video. The move where you break up above the range, then you pull back, you have like a nice little thing, and then you give the range time to catch back up. That's a great look. I mean, I'm not a chartist in the sense of like, ooh, a wedge or anything, but I do consider the fact that you saw what looks like a certain style of market here with very narrow bands, and then you saw a complete transformation into a very momentumy, very gappy kind of thing, especially with high volume. This is a perfect setup in my opinion. Now it's probably too long in the tooth because when you look at the daily sentiment, it's at 67%. Even the 15-day came down a little bit, it's at 59%. The volatility is actually off the charts relative to itself. I would suspect that it's going to start rolling over, hopefully at some point. And if it starts rolling over, we also see that correlation go negative. That would see the price just kind of like slowly gliding up in a low volatility bull market, which I love. It is significantly high. It's at $4. Obviously, it's well above. It's not well above, but it's above the top of the range as we highlighted earlier. The volume, while it's been high, isn't abnormal. Back here on the 9th in the early part of the month, that was abnormal. Even though back here, 113 million shares was like extremely high and 93 million. But since you've seen these higher numbers come in, it's completely moved what we consider to be high volume. 116 million or 133 million now is still in the normal range of the volume that we're seeing inside of Bitfarmy or whatever this thing, Bitfarm. What is it, Bitfarmy? Bitfarm. What's Bitfarm? I don't know. It's over there. Oh, Bitfarm Labs, Bitfarm Limited. But I do see that we got a price to fall because what's going on in the correlation. Again, you're going to want to look directly here at the 1 month and the 3 month. Those are just so high that while, yes, I do suspect that this thing has got much more to run, I think it needs a little bit of time just to chill out. Let's go ahead and look. I want to look at RXRX. RXRX is Recursion Pharmaceutical. I don't know anything about this thing. All I know is that it had a day that was noticeable. So if we look, oh my goodness. Okay, so it's above the top of the range that closed at 609. Top of the range is 592. Obviously today was up 16%. So like that's a legitimate 16%, even from open to close. Major volume was supporting it. We can see this thing continues to be bullish. Very, very bullish. Someone knew something and has been buying this thing. Like I have to admit that when I see something that I've never seen this stock before in my life, but there were signs. Like this definitely would pop up at least in my thing, in terms of things that start to pay attention to, especially when you start to get to the top of the range, you've got really narrow volatility. When the volatility is continuing to fall and it's about to reset, but you're seeing it well above the top of its range, not well above the top of its range, you're seeing bullishness resume while you see very high bullish sentiment. That definitely would stick out to me. Now, it's going to be nuts. Like, this is some of the ugliest like close prices in terms of the way that this the styling works, because you're going from normal range to moderately to significantly high to extremely high to significantly high, moderately high, significantly high. And the volume is all over the place. Some days it's normal and you're still getting moves, and then some days it's massive and you're still getting moves, but now you're up 16.6% today. Like, these are crazy moves that you're seeing. I don't know if it's news, I don't know if it's events, I don't know if it's CEOs, I don't know if it's mergers, I'm not sure. But there's something going on in the stock, and it is bonkers. This is probably the hardest thing to trade that I've seen right now. Just because, like, yesterday, okay, so today it's up 16.6% over the past 3 months. Yesterday it was down 95 basis points, right? Like, that's just tough. But you can tell someone knew something, because, like, even though it's getting volume now, there was like someone sneaking in. Like, in this point, I don't know what it was doing. Like, if you're at 609 now, you're up quite a bit. But like, somebody knew something. You could just tell, like, there's something that was going on here where suddenly, like, it just doesn't make sense. Why would you see these random days of really high volume? Right? I mean, maybe it's because, yeah, I guess it was already at high prices earlier, but there's something going on here. Now, if we go ahead, the last one I'm going to look at is SoFi. I want to look at SoFi because I've mentioned SoFi quite a few times in my videos, and I used to own SoFi. I do not own SoFi now, but I may come back to it. It's an interesting stock. It's just there doesn't seem to be a lot of trend. So when I think about the most important things to me, and I'm going to use SoFi as a prime example of this, is first off, I wanted it to be in bullish. Like, first off, it comes down to like just pure trend. Like, is it bullish? And you can see when it's green. So SoFi has been green, but it's been like giving streaks of bearishness, like suddenly in the middle for some reason. And it was a great these three separate times were like a great lead up to the type of move that we saw from the 22nd all the way down to, it looks like, the third. Like, while that doesn't seem like a big move, going from 29 down to 25, 24 is like kind of painful. That's like a good size move in your actual capital. So, especially if you're using options. So now that we see that it's resumed in the bullishness, the concerning thing is that the top of the range is not going higher. Like, at least before, the top of the range was at least going higher. You know what I mean? Like, it was going higher, or the price was slightly going higher, and then it started to continue to break out. Right now, we saw the price decrease. We had kind of a substantial amount of bearishness for like 3, 4, 5 days here. The price has not hit the top of the range. The top of the range is not going higher. It doesn't necessarily look like we've seen a complete trend change, but it looks like something has changed in the general market of what SoFi's got going on. We look at it in the volume. I do like the fact that we've seen higher volume as we start to see a little resumption of the bullishness, but I don't really care for the fact that we saw kind of major volume right before that. And if we look at the bullishness, we are just breaking back up above, but nothing convincing. We're at 52.1%. The 15-day, we're at 52.6%. I do like that the volatility is falling. That is great. The correlation is negative. We look at the table in SoFi, it is interesting. I like the fact that this thing has essentially, first off, it is flipped bullish. Okay. So it has been bearish recently, just like I was highlighting in that chart. It is now flipped bullish. We are back up above the trade level. We have a higher low in the bottom of the range. Those are all incredibly positive things. Incredibly positive. When we look, we are now positive on the 5-day, 15-day, 1 month, 3 month, 6 month. I would probably buy this again, right? I didn't know it was going to happen, because when you lose the 1 month and the 15-day pretty quickly like that, and you've had like kind of a buildup, that will, first off, it'll flip it bearish, and you just don't know where it can go. Like, there are definitely stocks that I am happy that I got out of just because they flipped bearish like that, because it just was running. It was like, I'll give you a prime example of why I would buy back SoFi right now, but why I got out of it. If we look at CHWY is one of the most fascinating. This doesn't have updated data through today, but it doesn't really matter. The reason why it doesn't really matter, and I'm actually just going to refresh it, but the reason why it doesn't matter is because CHWY is a prime example of what happens when something is very, very bullish, and then it starts to go very, very bearish. So if you were looking at CHWY back in this period of time, in May, going up to this period in June, and then you see this move, and then you see this additional move through July. This is what I'm talking about when I think about why I would sell, or why I just sold SoFi. I'm just gonna look at the SPY real quick so I can come back to CHWY so we can get the real data, because it looks like it updated. So, because the data caches on your local so that you can get it faster. So what we've got here, let's go ahead and make sure we got it. Yeah, so now we have today's date. So If what we're looking at in CHWY is this period where we are long, we are very, very long, and then it flips and it starts to go negative and it goes bearish, you get signals. And this is what I saw in SOFI. So when I'm looking at CHWY right now, I'm going to go back to this thing we know that it was very, very bearish or very, very bullish until like June. So in this period, right? SoFi was very, very bullish. It had hit, or excuse me, Chewy. Chewy hit $47. And at this point, it was up 43% in 3 months, 23% in 1 month, and 15% in 15 days. This is the great time to own Chewy. And I had owned Chewy since like April. I think I bought it during Liberation Day. So I definitely had bought Chewy down around like $30, right? And it was starting to get into June. The first thing that I noticed is first we break below the trade level. Suddenly, all of a sudden, after we've had these moves where we've hit 47, suddenly we have these like massive down days. All of a sudden, we're down 3.5% on the 9th. We're down 1.5% on the 10th. We're down 12% or 11% on the 11th. Remember, I bought into this thing at like 30, so I'm feeling very comfortable. But all of a sudden, I'm like, okay, now we broke below the trade level. We flipped bearish all of a sudden. We flipped bullish again, but now it's like, okay, well, we're still below the trade level. But we're still bullish. So even though we were hitting like 41, we started to kind of rally back. We hit 43, 42, and we're still bullish. Now suddenly it flips bearish on the 30th. We are at $42. We have been below the trade level ever since the very beginning of the month. And all of a sudden now when I look, we are now negative on the 1 month, the 15 day, and the 5 day. Even on the 3 months, yes, we're still positive. It's 25%, but it's nothing like it was. Now I'm like, okay, I think I should probably sell this. And I do because when it flips bearish, you don't know if this bearishness is going to be from all of a sudden, if you continue through the bearishness, we're down at $36 or we're down at $34. I didn't need to buy that. I didn't need to wear that. I could flip into QQQ calls during the month of July as opposed to wear that all the way down. You never know when it's going to flip. And that's the thing about SoFi right now. It's now confirming that it's flipping back. But like, look at I could have then just bought into Chewy at 39. It didn't really go anywhere, right? It didn't. This stock didn't do anything. And you could see that. Do you know how you could see it? Because when you looked at the 3 month rolling return and you saw something all of a sudden go negative and it stayed negative, even though it's bullish and even though it's above the top of its range, that's not a convincing look. You need to see something that's got a positive 3 month rolling return, no matter what the sentiment is. The reason why is because you want to maintain that you're going to be getting that kind of a move in the background, even though you know that you're still going to be getting a good move in terms of the 3 month rolling return, or in terms of something being bullish or being above the trade level. If you don't have a good 3 month rolling return, it won't get bought by like the algos. They're not going to be paying attention to it. But you could see when that transition happened at the very beginning of June for Chewy, that's what I was worried about in SoFi. So switching back to SoFi just to end this video, because that was kind of a random rant just on Chewy for a little bit. But the important part is paying attention to what's happening in SoFi. The reason why is because paying attention to what's happening in SoFi now might give you an opportunity. The move is just not convincing yet. I know that I've seen and I've really liked the move that I've had in SoFi. I've made a good little amount of, or a good little bit amount of, a good little amount of money, a good little amount of money inside of SoFi. And I just want to see, what are we going to do? The 3 month is not negative. The 1 month is still positive. We are now bullish. We are above the trade level. The lower high or the higher low is starting to come up. I like what I'm seeing, but we'll find out. Now, tell me what you think in the comments below. Tell me what stock you are long. Tell me what you think about my analysis of any of these stocks. Go ahead and follow me on YouTube. You can go ahead and follow me on Twitter. If you're interested, you can always go ahead and actually check out this app. It is free to sign up. You get 30 sectors, macro, world, and the G20. It's simple. Like if you want to use the macro analysis, just comes in, it will be updated. I got to update the data for today. I've been dealing with that. But essentially, it will give you the ways that you can look at stocks just the same way that I do. But I'll talk to you soon. Have a great day.